the previous videos, we talked about the concept of outcome-based education. It was mentioned that the CO, PO, and PEO needs to be constructively aligned. There will be assessment, followed by analysis, and then continual quality improvement, closing the loop, and restart the cycles. We also talk about the alignment of CO, PO, and PEO, where there should be a series of CO attending to one PO, a series of PO attending to one PEO, and a program is considered functioning well when all the PEOs are attended. We need to ensure a strong correlations between the series of CO to the PO, and then a series of PO to the PEO. This is so that attainments of those CO can contribute to the attainments of the PO and subsequently to the PEO. Now let us talk about how do we evaluate a program by using the outcome-based education. We have CO, PO, and PEO. In order to evaluate the attainments of the course outcome, there will be assessments on the students' performance undertaking the relevant course. We will need to analyze the students' results in order to determine the attainments of the course outcome. This measurement is quite straightforward. Every course will have 3 to 4 course outcomes. All the assessment within that particular course shall center onto the respective course outcome. If the students perform well during the assessment, we know that the teaching and learning method is effective and the course outcomes are attained. Next, based on the result as obtained from the evaluations of the course outcome, the program outcome is evaluated. The result from the course outcome are being carried forward to the program outcome. Theoretically, the attainments of the PO, which is on the basis of the CO, is actually an assumption. It is assumed that attaining the course outcome here shall lead to the attainments of the program outcome. This is of course provided that there is a very strong correlation between the course outcome and the program outcome. As far as the computations and analysis is concerned, the evaluations of the program outcome now will be on the basis of the students' results, and it is an assumption. Now the question is whether this assumption is valid. Can we use the students' result to determine the attainments of the program outcome, or whether the outcome as obtained from the attainments of the CO reflect the attainments of the PO in the reality? In this case, there should be a mechanism to verify the attainment status of the PO on basis of the student's result that is used to analyze the CO. Now, how do we verify the attainment status of POs? We can do some survey when the students graduate. There should be survey results on the exit of the students. Remember, previously we talked about the assessment. We will need to have appropriate tools, a good variety, and appropriate numbers of assessment. In this case, you have one type of assessment coming from the CO, and you have another type of assessment coming from the survey. These two types of assessment have two different nature. This one is more objective, where we can directly measure the performance of the students within the education system applied in the higher learning institutions. We use another set of the results coming from the survey, representing the perspective or opinions of the students or the stakeholders in order to verify the validity and accuracy of the measurements on basis of the COs. There should be a good variety of the assessment and appropriate numbers of the assessment. This shall share the risk of having the biased results. With that, it is recommended to have at least 2 assessment tools in order to verify the attainments coming from this route. You may conduct survey among the graduates. You may also acquire the data from the cultivating courses in order to verify the attainment status as concluded from this route. What are the cultivating courses? This kind of courses require the knowledge as learned from the engineering program as a whole, and they are normally offered in the final years of the engineering programs, such as integrated design projects, final year project, industrial trainings, and others. Next, once you confirm the attainment status of the PO, the relevant result shall be brought forward to the program objectives. The attainment status of the PO shall govern the attainment status of the program objective. Again, now these attainment status are on basis of the student's performance within the education system as given in the institutions of higher learning. It is on basis of the assumption again. Therefore, you will need to do some verifications. You could do some survey. Since this PEO is representing 3 to 5 years of the graduates entering the industry, therefore you can conduct the survey after 3 to 5 years of the graduations of that particular cohort. A good variety and appropriate numbers of assessments shall be conducted. Therefore, it is recommended to have at least 2 assessment tools for the survey. For example, from the stakeholders, alumni, and etc. This constitutes the basis of the evaluations for the outcome-based educations, and the scope of evaluations are given here. We are looking into the validity of the measurements, whether the assessment tool for CO, PO, and PEO, including those used to verify the results, are valid. Are we using the right tools to do the right measurements? We need to be able to differentiate what kind of assessments are doing the direct measurements and what kind of measurements are actually indirect. We also look into the reliability of the evaluations. Now, whether these assumptions is reliable, use a mechanism to verify the reliability of the measurements. If the verifications agree well with the measurements results, then we know the reliability of this model of analysis, and we feel comfortable to take it as a basis for us to propose continual quality improvement in the future. We also look into the integrity of the model, particularly the CO, PO, and PEO. Are they strongly correlated? Is there any possible way that can undermine or collapse the model? Any apparent weakness in terms of the analysis here, as well as any rooms of improvements to further enhance the correlations between the 3 items here. We also want to look into the currency of that particular program, especially when come to the surveys. You see 2 different nature of assessment here. Coming from these routes are mainly dependent on what we teach within the program. And coming from this side here are based on their observations, experience, especially for the PEO level. The graduates are exposed to the actual reality in the industry. It is possible that we are teaching the outdated materials, and everything is strongly correlated. The evaluation outcome coming from this route indicated that the PEO is attained, but when come to the exposure to the reality, the program now is outdated, not being able to meet the demands of the industry, especially on the contemporary issues, latest technology, newest regulations, and etc. Then you will find the survey result disagree with what you anticipated based on the students' performance within the program. Now, when you find the misalignment between what you have within the program and the survey results, that means there are rooms of improvements. Lastly, it will be the fairness. When we talk about the fairness of the assessment, we are referring to the assessments of the students or the student cohort need to be consistent and having equal opportunity of demonstrating their ability and the learning outcome, even though they come from different backgrounds, especially referring to the analysis of the students' result here. Now, what you observe from the model here, these are the assumptions. We assume that the measured result, that means coming from this route, and the survey result here are appropriately reflecting the actual conditions. The second assumption, when CO is attained, the PO is considered attained. Third assumption, when PO is attained, the PEO shall be attained. We also assume that when CO, PO, and PEO are properly aligned, good result shall give you the right evaluations. These are the initial assumptions, and from time to time, we will need to review the assumptions, especially when we have all these results. If you see the model here, we always mention it is recommended to have at least 2 assessment tools for the survey results. What does it mean by that? The fundamental principles is not about the numbers of the assessment tools. We are talking about 2 assessment tools of different nature. If possible, you will need to make sure the data are mutually exclusive. This is to minimize the bias in terms of the assessment results. Let's say now you want to do some survey at the levels of program outcome. We would like to review the performance of the graduates after 3 to 5 years of working experience. If you are looking for the data which are mutually exclusive, you may conduct one survey from the employers of the alumni, and then you conduct another survey from the alumni. Alumni are the graduates of that particular program. Now you have 2 different groups of people here. There is no overlapping in terms of the data. This is what it means by mutually exclusive. Let us talk about examples of different nature. Let's say at the PO level, you want to verify whether the result here is valid. You can conduct a survey among the graduates by the time they completed entire program, which at the same time you can do some sampling from the cultivating courses, acquire the feedbacks from the respective lecturers conducting these cultivating courses in order to verify their performance within the programs. The survey from the graduates, it will be more subjective. and the result as acquired from the cultivating courses can be more objective, and the lecturers giving the respective informations or data are typically more well-trained to give a more reliable reflections in terms of the overall performance of the programs. This is what it means by different natures of assessment. Of course, there is no restriction for you to have the assessment of the same nature, that at the same time you are unable to ensure the data set are perfectly mutually exclusive, and you can have as many assessment tools that you can. Now the question here is, you will have to find some way to eliminate the bias. And when you have so many assessment tools here, this shall increase your workload in analyzing the results, which the reliability of that particular result may also be questionable. Therefore, we will need to work smart on this. Now let us talk about the verifications. How do we verify the model here? For the program outcome and also program objective levels, there are assumed results. The assumed results are compared with the survey results. When the assumed results is similar to the survey results, that means they agree each other, it is considered verified. As for the course outcome level, since we can do direct measurements, we only need to know the validities of the measurements. Verifications is often applied when we cannot do really good direct measurements. Now, based on the verifications, if you find the outcomes is valid and reliable, that means the whole thing here is quite okay. Whatever strength and weakness as acquired from the analysis, you may propose continual quality improvement for your program. Identify the weaknesses of the program, try to rectify that. In this case, you will focus on how do you improve the programs. Now, if you find the results here are not in line, that means the survey results do not agree with the assumed results at any levels here, or the validity of the measurements at the CO level is questionable. Now you know that the model that you are using to evaluate the program may be invalid and unreliable. Now, when the entire model here is not reliable, whatever result as acquired here may not fully reflect the actual conditions. This undermines the fundamentals of your assumptions here. Whatever strengths and weaknesses as identified based on this invalid and unreliable model here may not necessarily be the actual situation. Then you will have to propose improvement. Try to make these models to be as valid and reliable as possible. With that, there should be CQI to improve the measurements and also your OBE frameworks. Now, if you are able to determine to which degree of the unreliable or invalidness of that particular model, the weaknesses as identified from the evaluations may be reasonable to a certain extent, you may also have CQI to improve your programs. On this note, you will see that this CQI is not just only to improve your programs. It is not limited to the content being delivered within the program. It is also not constrained to the teaching and learning methods as conducted within the program. Sometimes the problem can be due to the measurements. If you know there are some problems with the measurements, CQI will have to be conducted on that particular measurements so that it yields you better results, more closely resemble the actual situations. This is another common problems, even though among the experienced academicians. Normally, they follow the frameworks as applied by different universities, mimicking the process, grouping the CO, PO, and PEO, conducting the analysis, do some surveys, and then propose CQI to improve the programs only. That means they assume that the entire model here is always valid and reliable, not knowing that if this is not properly designed, the entire model here can also be invalid and unreasonable. If you do not rectify the measurement part or the OBE framework here, you will always get biased results, not reflecting the actual situations. No matter how you propose for the improvements of the program, the entire program seems to be remaining stagnant. No significant improvements is being observed. Therefore, we will need to review our model here from time to time. Probably the root cause, it will be the measurements and the OBE frameworks.